Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Jack. Today I wanted to run through the book that I've been reading most recently, which is called Atomic Habits by James Clear. You can listen to this on Audible, which is what I chose to do, or you can get the book available on Amazon Prime. But today I wanted to quickly run through what I've taken away from the book and what I think value it can add to you as well. So a lot of people have been raving about this book, especially in the productive community. A lot of YouTube creators have also been talking about it. The reason I wanted to give this sort of review today is just to give another perspective, what I can take away from it and what I think value it'll add to people who are probably in sort of a similar situation to me, don't feel like they've got their life as under control as they want it to be, they want to build some new habits. That's one thing that I think I can absolutely add and give some perspective on in this review. So the main takeaway from the book is I think that there are ways of building good habits and there are ways of destroying bad habits. Now, the ways to build a good habit, if you invert that, is how you destroy a bad habit. Now, I don't want to go into too much detail of exactly what's in the book because A, I don't think that's fair to the creator, but B, also I don't think I do it as much justice as the audiobook would do. So really, talking about habit creation, as I said, you've got a set of rules to build good habits and you've got the same set of rules inverted to destroy bad habits. What it talks about is consistency as well. It's one thing that I'm a massive advocate for. I talk about repetition in almost every blog post that I write. My blog's linked down below as well if you'd like to check it out. And what I talk about there is the repetition and the continuous action of doing something. The book phrases this really nicely. It's something that I'm going to take away and use in future, and that is that missing one day is an accident, but missing twice is the start of a bad habit. It's so easy to fall out of a good habit that you're building by having a few days missed, and the days that we miss are far more detrimental than the gain that we make from the days that we do the habit. Overall, I just think the book puts life in a really good perspective. The author comes from a background of quite hardship, from rebuilding himself from quite a devastating injury, and I think it's really important then to have that perspective. It's not written from the perspective of someone who's just randomly fallen into this place. This is someone who's written this book with thousands of hours dedicated to the profession of teaching people how to learn habits, how to get people in sort of better mindsets to build habits. And I think it just puts the world in really good perspective because he talks about not associating other people with luck until we've put in as many hours as they have. The second that we start saying that someone's lucky to be where they are, we have to step back and say, have we done as much and worked as hard as they have? And if so, and they've still achieved more, then we can start looking at external factors. But until we've pushed to that limit, that is the only point then when we can start to have an opinion on whether someone has been lucky or not. Really, the book goes into habits far deeper than I ever thought about them. It gives me a new way of looking at things. And one of those that I think is really important is how to put friction between you and a bad habit and how to reduce friction between you and a good habit. Quite often we want to do something good and we want to improve something in our lives, but we fail to make it easy. And yet what we do is we make the bad habits really, really easy to achieve because we like doing them. Our mind gets the dopamine rush from them, and that's why we want them to happen. So in the book, it's very clearly broken down into how to reduce this friction for a good habit and how to put the friction in for a bad habit. We all know that scrolling through social media, for example, is not a good use of our time, especially when we're trying to do something or trying to work. So James talks about in the book about just deleting social media off your devices. And then you can reinstall it at the weekends if you want, but if every time you open your device you have to reinstall and you have to then re-log in, that 2 or 3 minutes you're going to spend sort of scrolling is probably already cut in half just by that act. So it's about making the job hard for us. If it's hard, we're not going to want to do it as often. And then what we can work on doing is constantly weaning ourselves off from it. And another thing that will really help to challenge yourself to actually build habits is something called the Goldilocks Rule. It talks about in the book how we need to pick something that is not just simply too easy and it's not too difficult. We need to find something that's within arm's reach but probably slightly outside of our comfort zone. So for example, rather than playing a sport against an amateur or a pro, what we need to find is someone who is almost at our level and then just slightly better. Because if we play someone who's too bad, then we're not going to get anything from it. We'll be bored by it. If we play someone who's far too good, like a professional, then we'll instantly be disheartened. If we play someone who's just slightly better than us, we're constantly striving to improve ourselves. And this constant striving is referred to in the book as the 1% rule. It talks about aggregation or compounding of energy that we put into a task. And in the book, this is referred to as the 1% rule. It's talked about aggregation or compounding of the energy that we put into a task. What this means is that for our input, we gain a much greater output over time. As things compound and get bigger and bigger and bigger, that is where we start to see the gains in the long run, not in the short term. When I talk about this book with people, what I'm trying to get through to them is that, yes, this book covers everything that is simplistic about building a habit, but it has so much more as well. What people need to realize is that the habits are so much easier to build once you've read this book. I think it gives you such a better perspective on what you need to be doing in the short term to help build this habit in the long term. It's something that I just never really thought about going into detail. I never planned my life to build a habit, but it's so obvious now. Once you plan around a habit so you can develop it, it becomes second nature. It becomes almost impossible not to build. And the same thing, when you build your life to avoid doing something, it then becomes so difficult to achieve that it should be eradicated fairly quickly. As I said, the book itself is a brilliant read. I'll have a link down to it below in the comments section if anyone wants to have a look at it on either Audible or on Amazon. I'll also link my blog down below. And thank you very much if you watched this far. If you like the video, please leave a comment and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.